This has not been said the way it needs to be said. Dr. Tiller was a hero on the side of the people fighting for the rights of women in this country and all over the planet. Without the right to abortion, without the right for women to decide for themselves without shame, without stigma, without restriction, when and whether they will have a child, women have no more freedom than a slave. And if women are not free, that is half of humanity, then no one is free. And if there are no doctors, as she just said, to provide this service, there is no abortion rights for women. But instead of living in a society that celebrates somebody like Dr. Tiller as the hero that he is and was, we live in a society where he's assassinated, and where in the follow-up the media is busy calling him, on the one hand, Tiller the baby killer, and on the other hand, in the mainstream liberal media, as the New York Times did just last week, they're portraying him as a shrewd businessman. They talk about how controversial a doctor he was because he did third trimester abortions. They actually had the nerve to debate in this article last week whether his assassination would be better for the pro-choice movement or better for the anti-abortion movement. Excuse me? He was one of 3 doctors in the country who was providing a procedure, late-term abortions, that ought to be available in every hospital in the country. Even in pro-choice New York, as well as women all over the world, there was a need for people who needed late-term abortions to fly down and be referred to Dr. Tiller's clinic. And he coached doctors all over the country in how to do late-term abortions in their own clinics. There is nothing shrewd about this. He risked his life to do this. He was harassed, he was blockaded, he was shot already twice, and in both arms he went back to work the next day. There was no shrewd businessman there. There was nothing controversial about this man. He really was a hero of women everywhere. And his murder was a calculated political assassination that capped off decades of extra-legal and legal assault on him by people who hated him because they hate the whole notion of women being full human beings. And before I go any further, I just want everybody in the room to really take a moment and consider the responsibility that is on us to move forward from tonight. I'm going to say more about this, but to move forward from tonight and be a part of changing the dynamic in this country and fighting for a world and a society where women, A, have the right to a birth control and abortion, and B, where the doctors who provide these services are celebrated and protected, not isolated, harassed, and murdered. But it was only when class society emerged, with the development of agriculture, domestication of animals, and the need to pass on wealth to one section of people and not to others, that women's sexuality and women themselves had to be tightly controlled and turned into the property of men. This is gone into more deeply in this declaration. But with this emergence of class society and patriarchy came the whole idea that women's most essential role was not as human beings, but as breeders of children, and that they were mothers before all else, or else, you know, the sex objects, sort of the virgin and the whore. It first emerged, and in many ways, actually in very many ways, that's still the standards that are with us today. They're in different forms, perhaps, and you can see them, they're very much in the same form when you go to the clinic doors and you see the Christian fascists there, but they're in other updated forms, but it's still with us today, this dominant message that you can be many things now in this so-called liberated world. A woman can be the commander-in-chief, the woman can aspire as high as anybody else, but you'll never do anything more meaningful than be a mother, right? I mean, if you go to the White House website, whitehouse.gov, and you look up Michelle Obama's bio, it lists all her accomplishments as a lawyer, as all the degrees, all these other things. And then it says, but if you ask Michelle Obama who she is, she will not hesitate to tell you, first and foremost, she is Sasha and Malia's mother. And besides everything that's wrong with the kinds of accomplishments she had, which we could talk about, that notion that women's most defining role is to be bearers of children is still with us. And it's rooted in the past. And this is where the opposition to women controlling their reproduction comes. It doesn't come from the fact that fetuses killing, there's something wrong with killing a fetus. It's not a human being. It's about subordination of women. Some say we can all agree that abortion is a tragedy. And this too is dead wrong. Most women feel relief when they get abortions. They don't feel guilty or regretful. And further, given the fact that, once again, and this is really important that we keep hammering at this, given the fact that fetuses are not babies and abortion is not murder, the only thing you could possibly find tragic about abortion is that it enables women to step out of their place as breeders and servants of men. What common ground could there be with that? And to the degree that some women do feel guilty, this doesn't prove that abortion is a morally complex issue, any more than the fact that many women feel guilty after being raped proves that rape is a morally complex issue. It's time for people who are sick of seeing our doctors and our heroes isolated and murdered to engage seriously with the notion of real revolution to liberate women and emancipate humanity as a whole. And for those who are ready to do so, to get down with this revolution and begin fighting for a whole new world. And even if you're not ready for that, it's time for all of us to re-seize the moral high ground and to go on the political offensive to fight for a society where women have abortion on demand and without apology, and where the doctors who provide them are celebrated and defended. Thank you.